Hey, guys and dolls. Before we jump into this episode, a note about our content today. This is created for adult audiences only. We advise listener discretion as this conversation focuses on sexual, physical, and emotional abuse. Might be a lot to take in, so if you need a breather, take a break and come back later. This is your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lyndsay Soprano. On this show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. I have always considered myself to be this strong woman, hear me roar, right? And I'm going to say the word used to because I don't feel that way all the time anymore. Over the past decade, since my illness began, we didn't even know what I had. It was just one little thing. It was my right big toe that just started talking to me. And the voice of confidence kind of started to lose its sparkle, I think, then. And I didn't know what was going to be coming up in the next decade. And I ignored it. And, you know, I've put that I think that it was about then, but for all I know, it happened when I was a little girl, when I was 9, you know? And it's been kind of sad and devastating to watch this unfold. And like, I don't know, I always use the word sparkle. My street name means sparkle in Spanish. So we call my house the Sparkle House. And this is the Sparkle Studio. And it's my way of kind of trying to capture a little bit of my sparkle back because I feel like tiny specks of my like personal glitter, you know, have been falling on the wayside along my pathway and landing on perhaps hopefully other people wherever I went. But that's the empath in me. I did end up giving a lot of my sparkle away. So I take personal responsibility for a lot of that and letting people have my sparkle when they damn well did not deserve it. Oh my gosh, so dysfunctional. You know, I actually wear glitter like I've in every lotion and every makeup product and hair product because I always have to have sparkles on me. And I don't know if that's like, if that's something that I'm doing like subconsciously to like keep that sparkle going, but who knows? That's what's been going on. And, you know, you don't really realize that all of that goes away or starts to fleck off of you until you're sick. And you're staring at yourself in the mirror and you're like, well, when the hell did that happen, Lyndsay? Like, where did she go? And so I find that when we don't grieve along the way and we bebop from one trauma to another, our trauma gets like trapped in us, like a soul that can't cross over, you know? And it's been hard to wrap my head and heart around it. And I know that it is for my loved ones as well. And lately days have been worse than others. And as I continue to delve into my life's traumas, and find that I don't even know how I made it that far, I get a little scared. And we don't talk a lot about faith and God on this show. I'm not a fairly religious person. I consider myself to be agnostic, but I do believe in spirit. I do believe in us being here for a reason. And I do believe that I've had some pretty angry conversations with him over the years or her, and have sobbed buckets of tears asking why. Why me? Why this? Why that? How could you let something like this happen? Being angry. And I grew up in a Christian home. We're going to get into a little bit about that too, that anger that comes from things that happen to us, the crap that happens, you know? So today we're going to talk about getting Stella her groove back, gaining our confidence back and getting that sparkle back in our lives. You know, we have the power to choose that. And my guest is going to talk a little bit today about her power to choose, being it her superpower. And I truly believe that, you know, we're so capable of making change and changes in our life that it's not just possible, it's limitless. So let's talk about it. Let's skyrocket that confidence and get our sparkle back, damn it. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you today to my guest, Sharon Hughes. Hello, gorgeous.
Oh, hey, babe. It's so good to be with you.
Well, Sharon is a 2-time award-winning author of The Girl in the Garage, 3 Steps to Letting Go of Your Past, a faith-based book for breaking free from a lack of confidence, self-worth, issues, and a painful past. She's the co-founder of Confidence Academy, the host of the Called to Confidence podcast, She is a confidence coach and a self-worth expert. You guys get the gist of what we're talking about a little bit here today. And sadly, she is no stranger to trauma, and we're going to get right into it. You might need to grab your tissues, guys, because this hot babe has a harrowing account of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse that started at the tender age of 5. So I'm rolling out the red carpet for you, babe. And I'd like to get started with where you kind of want to get started with this, when your self-worth kind of started to get broken, you know? Well, it's a toughie, I know.
It's a toughie. And sadly, most people are not strangers to this. The older I get, the more people I talk to, it's everywhere. It's men and women. It's every socioeconomic group. It doesn't matter who you are, how you grew up, silver spoon or not. It's everybody. So one of my favorite quotes, and I'll lead with this because I think this is really what I want the audience to capture, is believing a lie is just as powerful as believing the truth. Because as we're unpacking this, we really want to get to, are you believing the truth about who you are? Maybe you're not who you think you are. Maybe you're something else. Maybe you're this beautiful butterfly, but you think you're the caterpillar or that you're still stuck in the cocoon. So if you're stuck in the cocoon, Lyndsay and I, we're going to get you out so you can fly. Let's go.
Look at you. Did you just do that on the fly? Because that was lovely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I like how you put that because it is. I've gotten to this point where I always felt that I was just this blooming butterfly flying all over the place. I've got this outgoing personality, but I also am very, very introverted and I'm very, very shy and I don't go out. I work in the dark. I have become a little bit agoraphobic over the years of going out in public around people. And I don't know where all of that started, but it's just a scary place to feel like you can't fly anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You know, when you and I met, we had this talk and I remember you saying, I don't have a lot of faith-based people come on the show.
I did, yes.
And you set that up here in the intro. One of the things is we all have this free will. And when people do really bad things with their free will, people like you and I and your audience, we pay for it because it has a ripple effect. But having this free will, it really is our superpower because we have a choice in whether we're going to do good things or we're going to do bad things and how we're going to respond to everything. Because we're not robots. And that's a beautiful, messy thing right there. So when people are wounded and it's tragic, sometimes they really take it internally. And, we can have all kinds of stories depending on, what the situation is and who the instigator of that pain is. Like when it starts from childhood, maybe a teacher told you that you're stupid because you got a bad grade. You can take that internally and you can believe your entire life that you're stupid. And it can affect every area of your life. So that's what I mean about just jotting down, what is it you believe about yourself? Is it true?
And that is a tough one to swallow. And I'm sitting here like scatterbrained in my brain. I want you to repeat that quote again, though, for us.
Yeah. Believing a lie is just as powerful as believing the truth.
I love that.
You guys have probably seen the pictures of elephants when they're babies and they've got the chain around their foot. And then, they grow up and it's like the same size chain. They never realize how powerful they are and that they can pull the chain and just march on. It's the same thing with us and the lies that we believe about ourselves. Nobody listening to this show is stupid or worthless or unworthy of love. You're human. I'm faith-based. I believe that you were created in the image of the Lord God Almighty for a purpose. And it's not to be abused. It's not to go through life feeling unworthy and small and broken. I really believe that those are lies. They're evil lies. And we need to deal with those and decide, okay, what do we want to believe about ourselves? One's going to keep us stuck and one's going to set us free.
Yeah. And that's tough because, when you're talking about looking at something of setting you free, we've talked about it on this show about how it's scary to feel like I won't be sick anymore, or it's scary to feel like I won't be ill, or it's scary that I won't maybe feel this trauma, or how will my personality change? Or like if you start making those shifts, because is Lyndsay not going to be wild and crazy Lyndsay anymore? When you start going about cleaning up your house and taking those lies and those beliefs and stomping on them and going, whoa, I have the control to be able to do this. But the beliefs that I have about myself, so many of them are very, very hard on me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so hard on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really typical of anybody that's been abused and has struggled in that ring that we get in and we fight. And the decision to decide who we are is a hard decision. If we're, one of the things that I say is, if you're not that, then who are you? And it really requires reinventing yourself.
And that's some of the things that are the hardest to do, is the reinventing, because it can be very, very scary. Change is like, wait a second, hold on. I'm comfortable here, even though it's harmful. I'm good here. I know this. I know how to deal with this area. But one thing that you mentioned earlier was about how you respond to things in life. And that's something that I'm working on in regards to stress, because I find that I have such a high level of stress, and so much of it is wrapped around safety and my body going, is this it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's tough. It's really, really tough.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that you can do to reframe like some of the stressful triggers, but it takes really being present and developing a new habit. So one of the things that I tell everybody I work with is set the reminder on your phone so it goes off right after you wake up. And the reminder is going to say, what do you choose to believe about yourself? And you got to start your day with that intention. What am I going to choose to believe about myself? Lyndsay, you and I know each other a little bit, but I know right out of the gate, you are kind. You care about people. You are generous. So can you choose to believe that you are kind, that you care, that you are generous? You have a good heart. So people that are listening, what do you choose to believe about yourself today? How about let's just start off with, you have inherent value. You matter. Doesn't matter what anybody else says. These are like timeless truths. So that's really the way that I survived all the trauma that's in my book. It was really my faith, and going in and saying, I believe in God. What does God say about me? God doesn't say I'm worthless. God isn't, he really isn't the God that hits you over the head and says, get it together and then come talk to me. That is really the sick, twisted skew that religion has put on.
Yes, thank you for saying that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a religious spirit, and I have no time for the religious spirit.
Can you explain that from your perspective, the difference between that faith and religion, and that, you love the Lord and you love Jesus, but you're not like the Bible thumping, standing on the corner, like the religious people that are, causing problems in our globe right now. But, it's tough because it's hard to separate those guys from, it's hard to separate religion from just being spiritual and faithful and loving that spirit that you have.
Yeah. I think it's one of those really weird things. One of the messy, weird things about being human is that we seem to think that we need to jump through hoops and do certain things to earn it to be good enough. And that's actually not what's in the gospel. It's like, hey, here this is. It's a free gift. You don't have to do anything. Just show up. Just, hey, come here. And people are like, wait, that offer is way too good to be true.
Yeah. I've dealt with OCD and perfectionism for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And those reasons as well.
Yeah.
It's my coping mechanisms for a lot of my things. If I make everything perfect and do all of these things, then I will be loved by my parents the way that I thought I should have been loved when I was young. Not to say that my parents were, my mother and my stepfather were incredible, and they still are. But I struggled a lot with the way that I was raised in religion and how much negative came from it, and how my self-esteem was so poorly affected by not being perfect enough. My mom's a little goody two-shoes, and I am the absolute opposite. And so I always felt like maybe there was like this conflicting part within me where, and I always say, so Gemini and me, but where I always wanted to be perfect, but I also was extremely rebellious. And so it was like the little devil and angel on my shoulder everywhere I went. But it was a lot of the albatross that was coming from, abuse that started at such a young age. So.
Yeah. I think again, that's a piece of the human condition is, I grew up thinking I needed to earn love. I had a really toxic upbringing. I had multiple abusers, and just so many things went on that you can be like standing in the grocery store and all of a sudden you remember something that happened to you 40 years ago and you're like,
Totally.
wow, yeah. And you just kind of go, how did I get through all this? And what's really funny is people that I know in the real world that knew me before my book came out, they'll be like, wow, I read your book. I had no idea. And I'm like, well, of course you didn't, like
I don't walk around with a t-shirt on saying everything that's happened to me.
exactly. But I mean, at that same token, everybody else is walking around with this, this kind of thing. We struggle and you don't know. I mean, sometimes I think people that have been through a lot of trauma, we have such a radar. We see people, we go, oh, we know.
Oh, totally. You're in the supermarket, you're like, I got you, girl. I know exactly what you're going through right now.
You can tell. Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
And it's sad because you see the weight of it on people.
Yeah.
So would you mind touching on a little bit? And I know it's a tough story to tell, but it is one that I think because you are such an incredible woman and you've gotten yourself through, I like to make sure that we don't let anybody feel like they're alone.
Oh,
and I'm spreading my glitter and my sparkle anywhere that I can. And you're right. I am nice and kind and loving and generous and all of those things. And some of those reasons are also how I got sick because I did too many things that were nice for other people too. So that's a whole other day.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah.
I get you. Yeah. The story's pretty messy. It's like parents get divorced, abusive parents. That's why the mom left the dad. And then, bounced back and forth between which parent I live with, being taken across the country, having the dad track me down and, basically pull me out a window in the middle of the night and bring me back to California. So there was parental abduction. There was sexual abuse by an older stepbrother that tried to rape me. Then there was, dad's a single dad and he puts me, with a babysitter. Babysitter's husband is a pedophile. Babysitter's teaching his son to be a pedophile. So the list just goes on. It was just one thing after another. Things just it was my normal because when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you don't know that all the other houses on the street don't live like this. It was, of course, toxic and horrible and all that stuff. And I felt, invisible. And it's kind of one of those things where you're screaming at the top of your lungs, but nobody can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. And just tried to suck it up and kept moving forward. And really everything culminated when I was 16 and I went to a Halloween party with an older boy. And, as soon as I say older boy, it didn't go well. But I was handed a cup and not even by him, by one of his sisters. And I was Mickey'd. I think that's what we called it back in the day. Now you call it being roofied. Yeah, right? That tells you how old I am.
I remember it being called Mickey. I do too, though. Don't age us on this program.
Yeah, so that was wild. I went in the bathroom and, was just kind of like fixing my little Halloween costume. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I need to lay on the floor just for a minute. And I woke up about 7 hours later in a garage at a different location. And I was being assaulted when I came to. And the what really sealed the deal was when I finally got home around 4 a.m, the porch light was off and the front door was locked and I didn't have house keys. People didn't give their kids house keys back in those days,
I didn't have house keys.
Yeah. I mean, most people didn't even lock their door. So why was my door locked? I don't know. Maybe she was really extra pissed. But I had to wake her up to get in the door and she just looked at me. She didn't say, where have you been? Are you okay? What has happened? No medical attention, like nothing. And so I shoved it all down. I didn't tell anybody. There was nobody to tell. And about a year and a half later, I guess it was decided that I was just too much trouble. So I was sent to my dad's house. It was the continuation of nobody knowing what to do with me and being bounced back and forth. And then he had enough. He was a very abusive alcoholic. And he said, get out, kicked me out. So at 17, I was homeless. And, and it was just like one thing after another, one trauma after another. And I just kept showing up. Like this entire time, I believed in God. But the funny thing is I thought God was kind of mean, like my dad. But I was like, I like Jesus because Jesus died for me. So he's cool. Like he gets it.
He's cool.
He laid it down for me, So I always thought that that's how it worked. And it wasn't really until like, gosh, I was probably late 30s, early 40s, where I really started to get some healing in my faith journey. And I started going, oh, all these things that I've been taught, they're not true. Yeah.
God, I know. Even though like being raised in a Christian home and going to church and all of that stuff, I backed in and out and here and there and kind of, like, well, okay, maybe I'll try starting church again, And it just never was a place that I felt comfortable in my own skin. And I felt very, very judged. And I always felt, and that, that goes circles back to the whole belief in what your beliefs are about you.
Yeah.
And so I think, oh my gosh, I've had all this bad stuff happen to me. I've done stupid things when I was in high school and college and like we've all made our mistakes. And I'd walk in and I almost would feel like, because when I started going back to church, there's a big church. In fact, I introduced my parents to it and they still go. But it was a big church where there's, 3,500 people and I could sit in the back row and I wouldn't have to do anything. My mom, on the other hand, is the one that goes and sits in the front row or the second row and wants to hold my hand and hug me and sing with me the entire time I'm at church. And I'm like, I understand that this is important for you to have me next to you, but I'm here for me. Mm-hmm. And I don't do it this way. So then I just kind of I started walking away from all of that. And then just one thing, like you're saying, happened after another. And I just was like, you know what? I'm done. Like I've given this my all here.
Yeah.
And I'm still faithful and loving and giving and all the things that I would think that Jesus would want me to be like. I just don't necessarily. I can't get into the religious side of it, like we talked about in the beginning. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
It is, and I've really come to the conclusion that man has created religion.
Man does God, everything wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really think that God created relationship. I think he is about relationship with us.
What does that mean?
Well, there's a really great verse in Hebrews that says, come boldly to the throne when you need help. So like if you had a dad, let's say you had like the coolest dad on the planet and he's got cash. And he totally thinks like you are the apple of his eye. And he's like, Lyndsay, you go away to college and you need something, you want to fly home for the weekend? Like, call me. What? Your car's broke down? Your car needs to go in the shop? Call me. You want to come over and you want to lay on the couch and watch a movie and just eat popcorn and not talk? Call me. I really think that that's who he is. And I think that who he is like has been like, we've been lied to. Just bottom line, we've been lied to about who God really is. And honestly, I think it's because there's an evil, dark agenda to keep us from experiencing true love. And I know that's like really heavy, but I've been to the churches like you've been to where you're just like, what is going on? Like all these people are a little, hoity-toity here. Like,
but you're right. There's all these narratives that we've grown up with. And then, you see the whole world, hating each other because of their gods and their this and all that. And I'm just like, hold on. If you think that this is the one true God, and then this guy over here is willing to blow himself up and all of these other people, I don't get it. I don't get it. So
that's evil.
Yeah. So when you started to work through, how did you get started? I know you had said that, you started when you were talking about with your mom and 16 years old and how you're like, that's that. But when it comes to like, when did you really start to go, I got to heal and I got to figure out how I'm going to do it? And then what did you do?
So it really started, I was probably in my early to mid 40s where I started just thinking like, something is just not right here. And somebody gave me a book called You're Already Amazing by Holly Girth. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist and she's a Christian author. And I read this book and it was basically like, you're loved and you're cool. Like you're enough. God says you're enough, you're enough. And I was like, who wrote this? I've read a lot of books. I'm kind of a book nerd, but I had never read a book like that. So I reached out to Holly on Facebook. She was so gracious. We start talking and I'm like, hey, I read your book and, blah, blah, blah. She goes, well, why don't you become a marriage and family therapist? And I'm like, girl, by the time I finish school and bank clinical hours, I'll be 100.
I'll be 100.
Yeah, because it's not a small feat to do that, especially in California. So she goes, well, why don't you become a life coach? She goes, I did that too. And, I'll send you where I went. And I said, okay, sounds good to me. I was really at a place where I had just started going through a divorce after being married 21 years. And I had this international wholesale business and I would put on entrepreneurial events. I was doing all this stuff. And I really felt like I just wanted to love women. I wanted to help women know that they matter and that they can, do whatever's in their heart. So I'm in this transition place, not knowing what I'm going to do next. And I start working to get this certification. And as I'm working one-on-one with this private coach, I'm like, I've never heard this stuff before. Where has this been? Really started working on the healing journey. And then it fast forwarded a couple of years where I was, really grieving all the things in my life. I was grieving the divorce. I was grieving closing a business that I loved. And one morning I woke up and I was praying and I was just like, God, I am not going to make it. I was like on the verge. I was really thinking, what's the easiest way to end your life and not have it be messy? Like, oh, but then my kids would find me. Like, this whole conversation's going on in my head. I'm just like, Lord, I'm not going to make it. And I just heard this voice say, what are you believing about yourself? And I thought, are you kidding me? Like, I feel unworthy. I feel like I'm a mistake. I feel dirty. I feel used from years of abuse, like all these things. And he goes, is it true? And that was just like, whoa, I've been in counseling before. Nobody's ever thought to ask me, is what you believe about yourself true? And that was super pivotal. And that was what I really went hard on and used as the foundation in my book, is like taking every thought captive. Is this true? Because we got to break some patterns of thinking here.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The loops of the negative self-talk that I catch myself in are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I'm at that place where, and it's been over the past couple months where my heavy work has been going into what you're talking about grieving. And it gets now I'm going to cry. All right. So now I'm going to grieve with you people.
And you need to grieve.
Yeah. No, absolutely need to grieve. And it's one of those things because it's dangerous to not. And I know that like this morning I was in my infrared sauna because I try to be a good girl and do it every morning. And I was like in there and I just started crying this morning because I was like, oh my gosh, you have so much to let out and let go and get rid of and work through and not blame yourself or beat up yourself for what you feel about yourself, leave them behind. This is a tough exercise, Sharon.
It is. Yeah. This is not for the weak. This is hard, gritty work. And it's a process. But let me tell you, when you get to the other side and you look back, you're like, I did it.
Yeah.
I did it. I'm free. I am free from this.
Yeah. And if you're thinking about looking at the future of like looking back and going, that happened to me, but that is not who I am.
Yes.
And that is something that has been very hard for me to do. Just because I'm the only one that knows all of the wild and crazy things that have happened in my life. Like, let's be real. I can be as honest as I want to, but there's no way I'm going to sit down with my sweetie and talk about all of the random shenanigans that happened, 25 years ago or whatever. Like, why do we need to drum that all up again?
Yeah.
I mean, we're at a high level, we know.
It is. It's tough to relive it. Now, there's a really great book called The Body Keeps Score.
Oh, yeah. We talk about it all the time around here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does. I mean, I do believe that there's healing from trauma. I believe that is one of the things that we can experience. And I've seen others experience when we're ready to ask the Holy Spirit to heal us from trauma. That might be new for your audience, but I mean, it's real. And if we have trauma that's not been healed and released, it's just a landing pad for other things to come along and take root.
Yeah.
Because trauma is no joke. I don't make light about it at all. Because when we want to deal with our trauma, we step into all kinds of other things so that we can cope, whether it's eating, it's porn, it's drugs, it's people pleasing, it's shopping. It doesn't matter. It's like name your poison.
Yeah, exactly.
God's not afraid of that. What's really interesting, I'm so thankful that you had me on, Lyndsay, especially knowing that you don't bring these conversations on very often.
And I don't bring them on lightly. That's why you're my first baby here on this.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So I want to talk, if we can, about your book a little bit, The Girl in the Garage, because, the title is so gripping. It immediately makes me think I love watching horror movies and thrillers and stuff. And if I want my sweetie to get out of the room, that's all I have to turn on and he's out. So I knew talk about a superpower. But it takes me to a dark and twisty place just reading the title.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it's going to be a thriller. It was my real life thriller.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that is how harrowing and sad the things that you went through is that the first thing I think of is turning on Hulu and watching a thriller and there's you. And so can you just chat really quick about a little bit about your book?
Yeah. So it's written like a workbook. I tell my whole story and I tell it really, really carefully. It's very PG so that nobody that's been through trauma gets triggered. And it's just a workbook with, really the steps that I used to get free. There's Bible verses in there. There's some prayers, fill in your name, and it's all about really shifting your lens and breaking up with the lies. And it's saying who are you? We talk about labels. Were you called fat and stupid and ugly when you were a kid? Okay, let's deal with some labels here. Let's decide not to believe those labels. So there's, lists of things that you can pick from. I talk about the ripple effect when somebody does the unthinkable and causes trauma, how that affects the person that immediately receives the trauma, but the ripple effect it has on a community, like our children, our family. And I talk about what to do if you're really angry with God, which is kind of a big topic.
Yeah, it is. And I think just angry as a whole can be, anger and resentment. That seems to be something that's starting to kind of come out of me and my grief. I'm like, whoa, where the hell did that just come from? I'm pissed and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Something could be I'm watching TV or I don't drive much anymore. But if I'm driving down the road, all of a sudden, you mentioned it earlier, I'll get a flashback of something and then I'll get angry and then I'll take it out on my sweetie or I'll take it out on myself. It's what? Wait a second. Pump the brakes here and let's think about what's really happening here.
No, Lyndsay, you are just such a beautiful, beautiful person. I love how candid you are.
Thank you.
I mean, you're the kind of person that we all wish we had living next door. Cause I'd be yelling over the wall, Lyndsay, coffee's on, come on over. Oh, I'm baking a pie. You want some? You're just because you're real. People are so hungry for the real.
Well, and I've talked about how I've always been this outgoing and weird and funky and crazy, and I can go into a room and I can talk to whoever I want to, but there is a very, very scared person that lives within that personality, that big personality that comes into the room. There's a lot of scared that comes with that. That's me. I feel like crap inside or my body's hurting more today or wherever, whatever it is that I'm dealing with, I'm pretty good at being able to put on a face and put on a show. Yeah. Not that I'm not agreeing with you. So thank you. But it is hard. And it's gotten harder over the past years as my body declined, And now I'm just, because of this show, we're working through way more than I thought I was going to be getting in. But when I said I was going to do this thing, I was going to do this thing. And so it's hard, to show up and talk about this and you get it. You're like, all right, let's buckle up.
Well, and you know what that shows is it shows that you're gritty and that you're using your power of choice to go, okay, I don't feel great today, but I'm choosing to move forward.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to show up and have this show and to live my life. And you're basically going toe to toe with the trauma and saying, I'm not going to let you win.
Yep. Amen. And I'm working on, there's so many things that have come out of this, not just relationships that I've made with people that are my guests, not unlike yourself. But man, I've forged friendships with people so quickly that we're on texting with each other every day. And I'm like, how did this happen? And these are people all over the world, and it's really been neat to feel not alone in this.
Yeah.
And that is something that's very important. When I had a bunch of banked episodes, right? You get it, and took off a month and a half from recording. And I was empty and sad. And I don't know why I feel super depressed. I wasn't doing this because I took off. And I was missing this connection because it's therapeutic. It feels good for me. It's great to see my guests smile and laugh, roll their eyes at me, make funny faces at me when I say something. They're just like hands on their forehead. I love that.
Uh,
You know?
yeah. And that's really all of us. We are wired for human connection.
Yeah.
It's so dangerous to isolate ourselves. And really, like when we saw the pandemic, people are getting depressed. They had Zoom burnout. They're, stuck at home and all this stuff that, they're isolated. How much, like, that's traumatic. How much more can a person take if you've already had trauma? That can be really triggering. We need to put practices in where we make sure that we're really intentional about having community and taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, the community thing is something I struggle with. Actually, my sweetie and I both do. We're both kind of homebodies, and it's harder for me to go do things, but we still do. I've got my wheelchair and stuff like that. But it's just one of those things where we're not engaged in our community at all. And we've been talking about we want to do Italian lessons. I'm like, okay, well, we can do them in our house, or we can like go to those little Italian like dinner things where they have nobody knows how to speak Italian, and then you've got everybody that's fluent, and you go and you hang out with them and do conversational Italian. I'm like, that would be really fun for us to get involved in our community. Those little things, you can reach out and meet other people and and start sharing your love and sharing your spirit and finding out what other people might be up to. That might be a reason why we went out to that Italian dinner that night. It's just how the world works. If you pay attention to the universe around you a little bit more and be more mindful, I think a lot of our fear can dissipate, and we certainly will be more engaged and present in our lives, because it's hard to do when you're in the thick of it. When you are on your knees sobbing and praying to God, take me away from this.
Yeah.
Take me out of this, because I can't do this. I'm alone. I can't do it. I can't do it. And then, show up the next day even still. But it's hard. And I've had my scary moments. So that's for sure. Okay, so we know that we can find you. Well, there's a couple different things. One, her podcast is called to Confidence. And her book is The Girl in the Garage, her most recent book, 3 Steps to Letting Go of Your Past. And I hope that it's only 3, because that sounds lovely.
I made it really easy.
If you have a sequel and there's 3 more, I'm going to be really pissed, lady. Wait, I forgot. There's a couple more. No, I'm kidding. And she's just so wonderful and so beautiful to look at. And I'm so proud to have you here and to have met you. And thank you for sharing your story with us, because I know it's hard to do, no matter how many times you've done it.
Oh, thank you. You are such a gracious host. I just adore you.
Thank you so very much for your time with us today.
Thank you.
You are exclusively invited to share this breaking up with the lies about yourself and having faith in hope VIP pain journey together. Let's get to the heart of how to heal with you by my side. Do you know someone who is living in and with chronic pain or is struggling with health challenges or trauma? Send them our way. You can send them to me. I can send you to Sharon. Reach out to us. That's what we're here for. That's why we've connected today with you. I would love to connect with you guys and hear your heartfelt stories of strength and wisdom. And I'm here to give you a safe place to unleash and share your incredible stories, no matter how hard they might be. Please follow the Pain Game Podcast wherever you digest your podcast content. We will be there. Visit us at thepingamepodcast.com and follow us on all the socials. Thanks for listening, my little VIPs. Catch you on the other side.